This is The Blockchain Show. The Blockchain Show is a weekly podcast that demystifies and promotes widespread adoption of cryptocurrencies and distributed ledger technology. You're listening to episode number 10, covering blockchain and cryptocurrency news for the week of June 26th to July 2nd. This week, we welcome special guest Erik Voorhees. Erik Voorhees is a co-founder of the Bitcoin company Coinapult, worked as director of marketing at BitInstant, and was the founder of the Bitcoin gambling website Satoshi Dice. He is also the creator and CEO of the instant Bitcoin and altcoin exchange Shapeshift.io. Later in the show, Ethan, Steve, and I discuss the difference between hard forks and soft forks in Bitcoin and in Ethereum. But first, here is Erik Voorhees.
Hi, Sarah. How are you doing?
I'm great, and I'm really grateful that you're willing to talk to us today.
Sure. Can you tell me a little history of the show?
Oh, sure. So this show, we have normally three people. There's Steve Anderson, whom I will refer to as our sort of resident expert. I knew nothing of the blockchain, Bitcoin, nothing until he came to LA to visit me in February. And so I'm on this show to make it, I guess, more accessible to the people, because most people that I know, a lot of people that I know, have maybe heard of it like in passing, or they just don't. It's very ambiguous. It's the intention of our show is to demystify this complex new idea that doesn't seem to get a lot of attention. And when it does, at least from what I've seen, like I was listening to you this morning on the Bitcoin podcast, and that I can tell that audience is very well educated in this subject. I am not. This is all new to me. So our best bet is for you to speak to me as if I were an alien who came here a couple days ago, and you're explaining your human culture to me, because that's how it is for me, and that's how it is for a lot of people I know.
Yeah, well, I think most people are still in that scenario. So
I have some questions from Steve that are more technical. So I think it's a lot of our listeners are brilliant. I'm so impressed with our listeners, because there's a lot of brilliant people out there. But there's also a lot of people who are just learning this stuff. So
cool. Well, I'm happy to help.
Yay! Thank you. I will say that one of the first things I noticed that struck a chord within me, and I'm super happy and grateful to have read. When I was reading about you, it seems that you say, humbly suggest, that there is no such thing as a free market when the institution of money itself is centrally planned and controlled. Very well said.
Yeah, it seems obvious, right?
Yeah. Well, it seems obvious. However, it's apparently not something that's spoken of too terribly much.
No. No, and not spoken of or even considered by people who call themselves free market advocates.
Right. Fascinating. And you're really a pioneer.
Well, yeah. I mean, if by pioneer means getting involved in a project when most of the world is still laughing at it, then I think
I consider that to be a pioneer. Yeah, that takes a lot of guts. And you're kind of considered to be the first big Bitcoin acquisition guy. I mean, you're like, to me that's a pioneer in a brave new world. So please use that power for good and not evil.
Yeah, I do my best.
Good. I'm glad to know we got good guys on that side. But so another thing, well, actually, let me put this out there too, just because from my own, my background is I am an artist and I'm a jack of all trades. I mostly deal with marginalized people and also counseling, you name it. I've done many different things, but at my artistic side would like to congratulate you not only on an awesome name, but I saw this morning like an animated logo of the little fox shape-shifting in like constellations emerging. Very cool. Very well done.
Yep.
I love that.
Thank you. Thank you. Where did you see it?
It's funny. I saw it because I tried to find it again to show Ethan, and I couldn't find it for the life of me. And so I actually kind of wanted to ask you where I could find it again. Because once I kept trying to look it up, I don't know what the name is for animated logos like that. Do they have a special name?
Yeah, I don't know where you saw that.
Yeah, I don't either.
Not on our current website.
But anyway, that was very well done. And one of the things I really wish I could do, especially after listening to you this morning, you have some superpowers. We all have superpowers. I wish that I could borrow your superpowers at the moments when I am confronted with people when they ask me what this podcast is about, and I have a few minutes to try and describe this to them. Mm-hmm. I'm getting better at that, but I would like to know what you say to people like that. Like, no, what do you do, Erik?
When people need to learn about blockchain?
Yeah, when you meet someone who really is not in that world and doesn't know much about what you do, how do you describe it to them if you're in an elevator with them?
Usually someone isn't ready to learn sort of about blockchains in general until they understand why Bitcoin exists and what it's useful for. More and more people are sort of entering the industry from the broad blockchain perspective as opposed to the more narrow Bitcoin perspective. But generally, just to explain to someone that, you can send messages over the internet, emails and images and videos instantly for free anywhere in the world. But you can't send money in that way, even though it's already digital. And why is that? And then most people think, why is that? Why can't I send money instantly around the world for free? And then you explain that you can, of course, do that with Bitcoin, and it's best if you can always show someone and they can get a wallet and you do a transfer of $1 to them and they see the magic right there, and then instantly they understand what's so cool about it. And then at that point, they're ready to learn, like, well, how in the world does that work and what does it all mean?
Very brilliant. Well said.
Thanks.
So you also said, one of the things I was listening to you talk about this morning was the social cohesion. And you said that the biggest problem is the social cohesion in the Bitcoin community, and it's not the size of the blocks.
Yeah. Well,
I think I have a pretty good idea what you're talking about, but like I said, I'm not as submerged in that community, and I'm curious as to what exactly it is you're referring to.
So are you aware of the basic debate that's been raging for a year now at this point over the block size?
The best answer to that is no. So I'm very open to knowing any version of that I can get.
So Bitcoin's blockchain has a block happen roughly every 10 minutes, and those blocks have a cap on their size of 1 megabyte, which means that only about 5 transactions per second can be sent along the Bitcoin network, because only that many will fit into a block every 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people think that limit should be raised, and a lot of people don't. And a lot of people think maybe it should be raised, but it needs to be done very carefully and sometime in the future, not now. It's this whole crazy debate that people have been arguing about for over a year. And while the technical question of how big that block size should be is an important one, the bigger issue is that it has fractured the community to the extent that it's almost divided people into like two warring factions, and each of them hate each other. And
oh my God, isn't that amazing?
Yeah, and they spend more time trying to vilify each other.
So what's the passion about?
I don't know why it's become so divisive. Largely, I don't know. I don't know why this issue has divided people so greatly. I mean, maybe just because there was a fairly even number of people on both sides of the issue, and so is there some threat to people's liberty if you have a larger capacity of a block? I don't even know if I'm saying that right. Well, the people who don't want to increase the size worry that larger blocks will lead to less decentralization and a less healthy network. Okay. Then you're sending larger blocks around. So there are good reasons for them to think that, and there are good reasons on the other side for the people who want the blocks to be bigger. And so both sides have a lot of good arguments and a lot of bad arguments, and a lot of smart people and a lot of mean people. Both sides are guilty of this. And so what you get in that situation is everyone just looking to people who agree with them for validation. Yep. And vilifying the people on the other side.
That sounds like a lot of what goes on everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, you see this like all throughout the world, whether it's Israelis and Palestinians or like any group of people that's sort of dealing with something, and they just, it's often about an issue that's not that big of a deal, and it just gets worse and worse, and soon they're arguing not over the substance of the issue itself, but over past transgressions of people.
Yes, and it can be terribly embarrassing to admit when you're maybe not wrong, but maybe not really looking at the whole picture. You get really invested in your passion.
Helpful.
Yeah,
just not being helpful, and it's a tragedy because Bitcoin is still very much an underdog and still very nascent.
Yes,
and it has many enemies and many challenges. If it's going to grow into a global payment and monetary platform.
Yeah, we need solidarity, big time.
Exactly. Yeah, it totally needs solidarity, and I think a lot of the Bitcoiners have lost sight of that.
That's very interesting. That's a very good point too.
Yeah, it's been a rough year of division.
Well, now I'm going to venture into the questions that Steve had for you. So these are ones I have to tell you, on the show that we do, when I started reading this, because I would do voiceover, I felt as though I was reading another language. You could probably even hear it in my voice. Now I'm starting to become more accustomed to these terms, but at the same time, I have to really think a lot about these questions because they're all new to me. It's another language. It's another way to think. It's a whole new world. But some of these I do know. For example, we have a Shifty donation button on our site for people to donate to the Blockchain Show without any supported crypto. So Steve would like to know who else is using the Shifty button.
Well, that's hard for us to know because anyone can use it sort of without signing up. But one of the biggest companies, I think, is Purse, if you know them.
Yes.
Purse.io. So they let anyone buy things on Amazon with a big discount, and they added the Shifty button, so people can spend any kind of digital asset on Amazon and save 10 to 20% on things.
On Amazon, okay, yeah. I even heard a bunch of disagreement about that. Funny enough, there's so much disinformation.
What did you hear?
Well, it is funny. You're right about that sort of level of. Like I said, as an alien coming down from outer space, I often feel I don't understand where I am. And I will read, where can you use your Bitcoin or whatever, Ether? And someone will list a whole bunch of places where you can go online and use them, Amazon being one of them. And then, of course, if evil exists, it lives in the comments section anywhere. And you will see how extremely angry people get at saying, you cannot use it on Amazon. I guess I'm gonna take your word over that guy.
Why do they even? Yeah, you can definitely. I mean, you're not spending it directly at the Amazon company. Amazon corporate is not receiving Bitcoin, but it doesn't matter because some other merchant, their business is in taking one form of payment and delivering the goods from Amazon.
Right.
So as a user, it's a distinction without a difference. You're getting any good that you want on Amazon, and you're actually getting a better price than if you went to Amazon and paid with a credit card. That's
amazing that this is so new, and nobody in my world knows what I'm talking about right now. This stuff is fascinating.
It's still very nascent and still hard for a lot of people to wrap their heads around. And they've grown up understanding that dollars is money. So
and anything else is pretend money, but
right.
I don't know about that. Okay, so one of the things that Steve wanted to know was, what are the most active trading pairs on Shapeshift?
That's definitely Bitcoin and Ethereum. So Ethereum at this point is the second largest digital asset. And so the trading between those two is by far our biggest pair.
What's next?
Next is probably Litecoin, which it largely follows sort of the market sizes of these assets. So, the top 5 blockchain assets by market cap are also generally our top 5 traded coins, with the exception of Ripple, because I'm not sure how many people use Ripple, but they seem to have a large market cap but not very much trade volume.
And I have to tell you something. There's a question here. maybe you can help me with it, because this is extremely humbling for me to ask this, because I can only get around to so many questions per show. Steve wants to know, what are some of the main benefits of altcoins? I don't really know what an altcoin is.
So an altcoin is just any digital asset that's not Bitcoin. It's
alternative.
often used sort of in alternative cryptocurrency.
Oh, okay.
And it's largely used in a derogatory fashion by some people who only want there to be one coin, which is Bitcoin. And to their credit, I would say most altcoins are pretty stupid. Many of them are experiments that are ill-conceived.
Right. Are we talking about like Dogecoin kind of thing? Like jokes?
Well, that's one that is actually seems to be more successful and have a purpose, but the purpose sort of ironically is just to be funny, which I wouldn't have thought was enough of an economic validation, but it has been one of the longest running altcoins, and in fact, from a price perspective, has been more stable than most. So,
well, that's what drives most of my decisions.
Someone needs to write like an economic thesis paper on how that even works and what it tells people about what value is. But
yes,
Dogecoin has been one of the interesting ones, but a lot of them are pretty pointless. So it's sort of like in the early internet days with the .com websites, and most .com websites that people put up were destined for failure, and many of them were bad ideas. But the concept of business over the internet was a very valuable idea, and people got better and better at it. So same thing in the altcoin world. There are a lot of these coins that are stupid, but many of them are interesting and pioneering blockchain technology in new ways. And ultimately, only the market can really figure out which of them last. So at Shapeshift, we don't endorse or prefer any coin over another. We just allow people to buy and sell these things, and over time, they'll figure out which ones are useful and which ones are not.
Yeah, it's fun to observe too. I bet there's a lot of there's so many levels to it. Like just like we were talking about the Dogecoin, there's so many social levels to how things emerge and why people gravitate to certain things. I can imagine, little communities starting up where, I was just recently on the show kind of joking about using blockchain technology in the governmental sense. I don't know, maybe that's not the right word. But more democratically than what we are doing right now. And I was imagining I'd like to vote for example, Joe Rogan to be leader of my little pod. And, there could be like a certain kind of Rogan coin that works. You could probably buy a lot of weed with that coin.
Yeah, for sure. Well, and that's the thing, is that like no one really knows how this stuff is going to be used. Just like no one knew how the internet would be used in 1995. And what's important is that people can experiment with it and try these things out and build. That's the only way this stuff gets figured out. So I think the blockchain industry is going through, very much a Cambrian explosion right now of innovation. And so we're trying to do our small part to help make that more liquid and easy for people.
It's brilliant. It really is. Again, that logo says so much. Whoever did that, I'd like to talk to that person. My kind of thinker.
Yeah, our logo's pretty great. If I may be unhumble for a moment.
Did you have a big hand in that?
Yeah, my background's in marketing and branding. Sometimes when you're doing logos, you go through like a million iterations of ideas, and some of them are good, but nothing just clicks. And with this one, the Fox logo just immediately was the right one. We didn't even, on the first concept of it, that was it. There was not even any editing or changes or anything. As
a person who thinks more like a shaman, there's so much coolness in that. And having it like shapeshift into all those sort of fractal, geometric, constellation-y type. Oh, fabulous. It sends chills down my spine.
Glad you like it.
I do. Could you tell us about your role at MGT Capital Investments?
Yeah, so it's not much of a role. I mean, basically, I was asked to join a cryptocurrency advisory board for MGT, which is John McAfee's new cybersecurity company that he's starting to build. And he, I think, correctly believes that Bitcoin and blockchain companies will be a larger and larger piece of the technology landscape, and they have very important and crucial security needs. So I think he believes a lot of Bitcoin companies will be his customers, and so he wanted to form a cryptocurrency advisory board that would sort of inform him and his staff about the blockchain industry. So myself and a few other people were asked to join that, and so I'll be there to sort of help teach him about what the industry is doing and who's involved and where he might be interested in talking with people.
Very cool. We definitely need you on the good side.
Yeah.
With great power.
So I've had a few calls. I've had a few calls with McAfee now. He seems like a genuine person, and anyone that's getting involved in the Bitcoin world, I'm always happy to help.
Ooh, I love hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. That matters. Cool.
Yeah.
I feel better about the future of the security of the blockchain now.
Good. Well, I'd say that's a success then.
Yeah. So, another question. What is the status of the Free State Project? And my added question on that is, what is the Free State Project?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second question first. The Free State Project is a group that's been around for 12 or 13 years, something like that. And basically it's the idea that libertarians in general are everywhere a minority of the population. Something between 5 and 20% of people, I think, are very sympathetic to the libertarian mindset. And so that means that nowhere will they have any sort of political influence because they're not a majority. So the Free State Project was an attempt to get 20,000 libertarians, and preferably sort of active libertarians, to move to one geographic location where they would have an outsized influence. Yeah.
How did I not know about this?
That location was, yeah. I mean, it's fairly well known in the liberty world at this point. But,
oh my! I must have been asleep. I've been watching too much TV for the past 10 years.
Yeah, that'll put anyone to sleep. So that was chosen as New Hampshire, and people have been moving there, over the last decade or so. I think they have something like 13 or 14,000 people signed up, and 6 or 7,000 that have moved. And the idea is that once 20,000 sign up, then everyone has to move within 5 years. So it's a very long-term project, and I signed up for it, and I lived in New Hampshire for a year and a half, and that's where I found out about Bitcoin, actually.
Wow. I can't believe how little I know about this. This is so fascinating. And I never, I've been a very lucky person to have lived in a lot of beautiful, wonderful places. Did not realize that New Hampshire was going to be one of them, but apparently now I'm signed up for that already in my head. How is it, by the way? How is New Hampshire?
It's good. So I lived in Portsmouth, which is a really beautiful town right on the coast in New Hampshire, and I mean, largely it's a big social experiment, and a lot of I made a lot of friends with the Free Staters, and they all are trying different things. So it's not like everyone's moving there and then trying to run for Congress. Some people are involved in politics. Some people are involved in sort of civil disobedience type activism. Some people are just there to live and be around like-minded people, and
that's got to feel good.
Grow their families and build their businesses, and so it's a diverse group of people that all have sort of one mission, which is to try to reduce the scope of government interference in their lives.
Yeah, that sounds really beautiful, because everybody has their own little role to play, their little place in society. And it's all, in my humble opinion.
People are too scattered.
Yeah. And it feels really good to find your sort of, I guess I'm going to say soul group. I've read that, but your tribe, your people. Mm-hmm. I know I've spent a lot of my life feeling like a fish out of water. It's really, really helps to find my people. All right, that is so great. So wait a minute, then what is the status of it, if one can even ask that? Where?
Yeah, status is it just slowly progresses over time, and more people sign up and more people move.
It is continuing to grow and progress, and people are working together in this, and it's thriving.
Yeah, I'd say it's just kind of consistently grown since I learned about it. And they're more than halfway to the number of people they were trying to get to sign up. And
holy cow!
It's the kind of thing that takes a long time because for people to sort of uproot their lives and move somewhere is a very big commitment.
Yes, it is.
But it's growing, and they do 2 events every year. One's called Liberty Forum, which is sort of a more academic conference about liberty issues in general, and then another one called Pork Fest, which stands for the Porcupine Freedom Festival, and that's more like outdoorsy camping festival with families and friends up in the woods in New Hampshire. So both of those events are great.
Probably a lot of tiny homes there, huh?
What do you mean?
I just imagine that there would probably be a great deal of tiny home communities in that sort of world. It's my imagination.
I don't think so. I mean, the Pork Fest itself is just a camping festival, so lots of tents.
Here's another one that you'll have to explain to me as well, because Steve wants to know, what are your thoughts on LSK? And I'd like to know, what's LSK?
So LSK, I believe, is LISK, which is another cryptocurrency or digital asset. Cryptocurrency isn't really the right term for a lot of this stuff because it's not all even intended to be money. But so I'm not an expert on LISK by any means, but from what I know, it is sort of an Ulterium or an alternative to Ethereum. So it's built to be sort of a platform for decentralized applications, and is a separate project from Ethereum and competes with that platform.
I wonder why he wanted to know about that one in particular. I'll have to ask him later.
Maybe because he's seen the price of it rise.
Oh, is that why?
A lot of these assets people get really interested in when they see, a 20 or 50% price spike. Indeed, that's what got me interested in Bitcoin when I first heard about it.
And that wasn't that long ago then, was it?
Well, I got involved in 2011, so
okay.
5 years.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. You were talking about the Free State Project being something you recently learned of. Well, I have to tell you, what I would like to know, honestly, is I would love to know what you're focusing on right now. What does it in the future world, because you're living in the future, what do people focus on?
My day-to-day is just building Shapeshift. So it's been growing fast, and we're trying to just keep up with the growth and try to, when I first started it 2 years ago, it was sort of theoretical that there were going to be lots of blockchain assets for different things. And it's demonstrating to be true. And instead of the industry sort of consolidating upon one asset, which was Bitcoin, it's expanding very quickly into lots of different types of assets. So we've just been trying to keep up and make sure the platform is fast and easy for people and add features and add support for all these new assets as they come online.
You're pretty steeped in this world, and there's so many new... Like I think my function on the show is just to be the person with the wild imagination and the person who's like stepping into this like a child with wide-eyed and wonder. So you are really nice and submerged in this. You must be hearing so many new ideas for applications for this.
There's no way I can even keep.
Right.
There's no way I can even keep track of it at this point.
What is recently, like we had somebody come on the show not that long ago talking about a brilliant idea to sort of remove the whole notion of student loans and kind of restructure education. And to me, that my brain exploded with possibility and excitement and joy. But there must be you must hear of these sorts of little other just outside of economic possibilities, which is huge, but have you heard anything recently that's really kind of got stuck in your head that you thought, wow, that'd be a neat way to change that structure?
I think other than Bitcoin itself, the project I'm most excited about is called Augur, which is a prediction market, decentralized prediction market, so that people can basically bet on the outcome of events, saying they will or will not happen. Prediction markets are very fascinating because when people put money on the line to make predictions, those predictions tend to be more accurate than professionals and experts making guesses with no financial stake in the matter. And the problem is that prediction markets are largely illegal in the U.S.
I'm sorry, largely what?
There's a big one, largely illegal.
Oh.
So that's why there aren't any in the U.S. And
can you forgive me? Just pause for 1 second, because
sure.
I don't. It seems like I should know this, but why are they illegal?
So there's probably two official explanations. One is that it can be considered gambling.
Well, that's
which
legal.
In the sense it is, but
yeah.
but lots of things are gambling,
gambling,
buying stocks.
Yeah, going to Las Vegas. That seems to exist.
Yeah. I mean, consistent moral philosophy is not it's not really the strength of U.S. policymakers. So they're just. I think the other reason is that people are scared of prediction markets because, for example, some people get very uncomfortable with the idea of making a bet on the outcome of a political election, for example, or not as serious, a bet on the outcome of a sports game. There are certainly issues of corruption in gaming the system and things like that. But of course, those already happen. Prediction markets just basically are taking what's already done in the black market. People already make bets on these kind of things, and there's already vast corruption in a lot of these institutions, and essentially bring it into the normal marketplace where anyone has access to it. And I think on net, the ability of people to make financial predictions on events is a right that all people have. I mean, there's no good reason why someone should not be able to stake their own money to predict events in the future. As a free society, that just seems
seems
like
kind of
something that shouldn't
really harming
Take
anyone.
that away from people.
Yeah,
and just because some people will abuse it, like anything, it doesn't mean it's okay to take the right away from everyone who's being good.
Yeah, you can abuse a fork.
Right. So yeah, it's been illegal in the U.S. And the reason Augur is so exciting is because it's decentralized and there's no company behind it.
So no one can be thrown in jail, precisely.
Right. I suppose if they really wanted to, the government could throw individual users in jail, or maybe some of the developers or something, but that starts to get pretty messy, and you can't shut down the project because the project's open source and decentralized. So
that's so fascinating.
Yeah, so when that gets released, I think it'll be quite a success, and hopefully they'll get it up before the election of the U.S. president, because that will be obviously a massive market that people will like to place their predictions on.
Well, I have to say, my mind is, once again, this always does this to me. For the rest of the day, I'll have so many things to think about, and you've been awesome. I appreciate you coming on.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Cheers.
So, the interview. He was a very nice and funny man. No, it was honestly insightful. Did you know? You knew about the Free State Project. I didn't. That was all. Yeah. That was brand new news to me.
It's an interesting thing for libertarian-minded people to, realize that they're not doing much good in a democracy when they're going to be outvoted in every place. So they can get everybody to move to one state. Yeah, that Pork Fest is, I think it's called, like Porcupine Festival.
Oh, right.
There's a bunch of merchants there and things like that. And of course, every single one of them accepts Bitcoin.
Are you serious?
I'm dead serious.
It's like a paradise. I actually took an atlas out today and looked at New Hampshire. Like, all right, well, who knew? I didn't even know I was a libertarian, honestly.
Oh, you're a libertarian?
Well, I guess so. It sounds good to me. Sounds like a great idea.
Yeah.
I don't know. I keep thinking I'm missing something, or I don't know. I don't know if I am. I'm open to hearing it, but it sounds like a great idea. I don't know why Texas doesn't do their own thing. California can do their own thing. UK can do it. Go for it. So, also, by the way, I've been listening to Andreas Antonopoulos on the Joe Rogan Experience. And speaking of which, one thing I did mean to say to you was that, forgive me, now that I've had time to, I don't know if I'd call it meditating. It was podcast listening. But hearing him talk about that micropayments, that's really, really brilliant. That takes away a lot of the weirdness I have with money, I think. It never seems to, somehow it doesn't seem to fit right with me. And that's where a great deal of discomfort comes in for me and exchanging money. And the more I learn about micropayments, the more it seems ideal for, forgive me for sounding overly enthusiastic, but ideal for my life, ideal for the lives of many artists or just anyone. Like smart contracts can be just written up so you always get this teeny tiny micro percentage. That just makes all the sense in the world. It makes everything more affordable, more doable. And then people can get properly paid what seems to be kind of fair. Or has the potential to be extremely fair. What a great way to just do things. And I was hearing him say that even these were sort of older podcasts, at least a year old, one of them. And he was saying that he has been accepting all of his pay, or he's just been living off of Bitcoin, right? For a while. Yeah. Are you doing any of that? I know you were talking about getting paychecks deposited, or portions. You can have portions deposited.
No, I don't have I do buy Bitcoin and Ethereum right now. I did invest in the DAO, which I sold. You can still invest in the DAO right now if you wanted to. It's 75%, but it's kind of weird. But I do have Ether and Bitcoin. Not a lot.
How often do you actually use buy things with them?
Anytime I buy from Amazon.
Oh, okay, cool.
So I mean, it's absolutely fantastic. First, you save a lot of money.
Can you actually get fresh fruits and vegetables off of that? Is that a complete possibility to live off of Bitcoin?
You actually can. You actually, well, there's a number of people who have successfully that live off Bitcoin successfully. There's always little workarounds you can do, but in 2016, it's incredibly easy to live off of Bitcoin, and you could probably do it, especially in California, because Amazon does have, their fresh markets there, and their grocery deliveries and everything like that. So
you don't have them there?
No, Amazon does not. You can get a lot of things, but they have, specific, I forget what it's called. It's like Amazon Fresh or something. Is that what it's called?
I don't even know. I know we have Prime, but that doesn't. I don't know if that means you get the.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, you're right. It is Amazon Fresh. I think that's right.
Right. So you could probably get Amazon Fresh there, which would solve all your food needs. Convincing your rent to take it.
Right.
paying your rent with Bitcoin. It's a little tougher, but there are other avenues, I suppose, to doing that.
I wonder when that's going to start happening. Have you ever heard of any instance of something like that? What about in New Hampshire? You say that places are existing that.
Well, what I was talking about in New Hampshire is pretty specifically to the Pork Fest.
Oh, okay. Oh, I see.
So they have a big freedom festival. The libertarians first and foremost are kind of freedom-loving people, but their philosophy is, in my opinion, mainly based off of property rights. It would be interesting to see an alternate political party that they're high on freedom, but the basis for that comes off of human rights as opposed to property rights. Does this make sense or no?
I literally just got off track. So if you rewind 2 sentences, we can go from there?
The libertarian philosophy is, freedom focused, freedom first, but the way that the approach on what entitles people to freedom is property. So it's based on property rights. You have the highest stake in your life, so you own your property, nobody else can own you, and things of that nature. I probably should just remove that last sentence for this. But, it'd be interesting to see like a philosophy like libertarianism that is, as freedom loving, but that its basis comes in human rights as opposed to property rights.
I agree.
Yes, but there's not one out there now that I know of, at least.
What if you don't even care about property rights? What if you're like the Aborigines and you just think, this is all silly, I can't wait to evolve out of this?
Yeah.
Is there a name for those people? Aborigines, I guess.
Right. The unfortunately, that type of mentality gets wiped off the planet by mentalities a little more warlike. When you have a basis in property, you build ways to protect it, and that gives you also ways to take from other people. So it's as with Aborigines and as with the American Indians, they didn't fare too well when there's more.
When the bulldozers come, Zamboni all your stuff.
Yeah.
Change the rules.
Right. So
bullies.
Yeah. I mean, that's certainly. I think that's an accurate way to look at it. I mean, there's other ways to look at it, but I think it's at least one accurate way to look at it.
Oh, so today is Maeve's birthday, isn't it?
It was her birthday. So happy birthday to Maeve.
Happy birthday, Maeve.
Looks like she had a big party.
She had a party. Yeah, she was pretty happy at her party. She didn't get too cranky, and she didn't even nap that much. So it went pleasantly well. She had cake, or like cupcake, for the first time ever. So now she won't eat anything else but sugar.
Right, for the first time ever. Congratulations on that. I call that a success.
Yeah, that's impressive.
Hey, is H ever going to come on this show?
I kind of convince her. She kind of like threatens to come. Not threatens. She kind of wants to come on until she realized that would mean like talking about things. And this isn't really her element. If she wants to,
right,
I'm more than happy to have her on. It'd be fantastic. But I don't think she wants to.
Yeah, I don't want to push it.
It's just not something. We can convince her. Do you want me to convince her or no?
I don't think you should ever make anybody do something they don't want to do.
Yeah.
Can you make her want to do it?
Can you make her want to? That's the trick. Use your superpowers.
Part of her personality that she really doesn't. This isn't her bag.
I wouldn't mess with her. So back to life.
Well, there's been a number of things going on in the Bitcoin community. The DAO, remember the DAO?
Indeed.
That kind of had a loophole. I was listening to Andreas explain, with a metaphor, what happened in the DAO, or what happened in the soft fork. So they made like a soft fork in the DAO.
You know what? I'm sorry to stop you right now, but I have to tell you, I've been listening. I have been doing a lot of homework, and I still don't exactly know the soft fork and hard fork thing. I don't.
Yeah, and I kind of wanted to touch on that a little bit. They're kind of just terms that aren't as meaningful as people make them out to be, but they do mean something. So a soft fork in the blockchain space, or in related to a blockchain, it has to do with. Let me explain what an orphan is. We'll call it an orphan fork. Every 10 minutes, a new blockchain is created on the Bitcoin network. So there's a group of transactions that are created, and then that group of transactions, called the block, is propagated around to the rest of the network. What can happen at times is two blocks are created at the exact same time. This happens frequently. And those two blocks begin to propagate through the network, and eventually one of those 2 blocks that are now propagating, somebody builds on top of that block. And so that gets propagated through the network. And so one of the 2 that got created at the same time will become the blockchain, and the other chain will get orphaned. And so that's the fork. Going along, you have one, line of blocks, but at a certain point in time, 2 blocks are created. And only one of them continues to go on. One fork gets orphaned and nobody uses it anymore. Does that make sense?
What happens to the orphaned fork?
Nothing. It just
sits there, or does it disappear?
Well, what happens to it? It's a consensus network, so there's miners, and what happens to the computer software that's on the orphan fork is that they get the new block that has a better proof of work, or that has that they can look at it and go like, this new fork is even better record than the one I have, so I'm going to update my system. So that new fork gets updated. Does that make sense?
So far, yes.
It just all the systems that had the fork that lost, they just update it and they just delete it from their file system. Now, I guess you could technically have like a fork that doesn't get deleted in some way, but it would never get. It would be really difficult for somebody to, kind of get that fork having a stronger proof of work than the fork that has been working the entire time.
So which one is the hard one and which one is the soft one?
So that's just a fork. They call them orphan. This happens all the time, right?
Okay.
Happens all the time. So a soft fork is a fork that happens because there is a backwards compatible change made to the software, and it's the mining software. So a miner uses the software to mine these blocks, and they can put in some change there into the software, which allows old or outdated or software that isn't updated to still accept those blocks. So new groups of transactions are still valid on old software. That's a soft fork. Now, what does that really mean in the grand scheme of things? Probably nothing. It's important to notice that in a soft fork, miners are the only one who have a say in whether a soft fork gets upgraded. So users of the system don't have any vote or don't have any say in that matter. So that, in my opinion, makes soft forks a little more dangerous, even though they're less technologically dangerous. The system is going to continue to work, but the democracy involved or the community consensus isn't there in a soft fork, because it only takes one small subset of the community to decide what soft fork what soft fork changes should be made.
So who's deciding the DAO's future?
Well, the DAO is basically done. The DAO
for sure sunk.
Yeah. Well, the DAO is sunk. It's not coming back. There may be the DAO 2.0, or hopefully, if they make a new one, they'll actually have a better name than the DAO. But there are a number of DAOs out there that will continue, and there will be better DAOs. The DAO sunk, but the DAO soft fork, what happened was there was an error in the code. And now I want to get to the difference between a Bitcoin hard fork and an Ethereum hard fork in the future. But let's just talk about the DAO soft fork. What Andreas was saying was that it's kind of like they wrote this code to do a soft fork. And the way Ethereum works is when you do a transaction, you have to pay for the transaction what's called gas, or it's converted to Ether. And what basically could happen was that the soft fork allowed anybody to spam the network with as much transactions as they wanted, really tie up the entire Ethereum network, and then at the end call the DAO. And that would roll back all of their transactions, not cost any money. And so it would give an attacker freedom to just tie up the entire network. Nothing could ever get done. It was kind of a good thing in a way to realize that that's how resilient these networks are. Even if the community wants to, even if all the developers who are involved in this want to make the soft fork change to it, which I thought was a bad idea. I didn't like the soft fork at all. They're unable to. It's just, you're not unable to change these systems in the way you want to at times. So it's a win for the resiliency of the network.
That's good.
So the analogy was that you can go into a restaurant, say, wave your $100 of bills up in there and say, bring me food, and bring me a bottle of your finest wine, and bring me this, and then eat the food and drink the wine. And at the very end, say, oh, but wait, the DAO, and then you couldn't charge them. And that's basically what was happening in the soft fork, or that's basically what would have happened had the soft fork gone through. So the soft fork was approved. The community looked at it, said that, this code will actually lead to really, really bad effects for the Ethereum network. And now nobody's talking about soft fork anymore. It's off the table.
Sounds like a dine and dash.
Yes. So, and they gave anybody free reign on dining and dash, knowing that they will, no matter what, be able to dine and dash.
Wow.
Yeah. So they're not going to do that.
So they've learned that lesson.
Right.
Onward.
So lesson learned.
Right.
Ethereum is stronger.
Baby steps. It's all good.
Now, the hard fork is a little more interesting. And there's a difference between a Bitcoin hard fork and a Ethereum hard fork. But I want to talk about, in a hard fork, you actually have users using software. So the actual people who are sending transactions back and forth, and they get to vote on hard forks. So they have to have, they have to upgrade their clients in order for this to go through. The miners have to upgrade their clients. The exchanges have to upgrade their clients. Everybody has to upgrade the way they're dealing with the network, because it's no longer backwards compatible. Old clients no longer function on the network. There's now a hard fork, where in the soft fork only the miners voted. The only thing that matters was what miners were doing. Clients don't matter. So a hard fork is much more technologically advanced, much more technologically difficult, but it is a safer thing because you have more community consensus. There's more people involved. It's more democratic process in the soft fork, where although it's not as technologically as hard, you are really bypassing community consensus by just asking the miners what their feelings are.
Is there some kind of bitter feud about hard and soft forks right now?
So, you talked to Erik a little bit, and he had mentioned, the block size, increasing the block size.
Yeah.
And that, is creating this very divisive dialogue within the Bitcoin community. And so what core, the people behind the main Bitcoin client, are trying to do is say, like, only soft forks are not dangerous, and anything with a hard fork we don't want to do. So there's that as well. They don't want to increase the block size. A block size requires a hard fork, requires consensus. They want to push through something called segregated witness, which allows them to increase the amount of transactions that fit inside a 1 megabyte block. And they're kind of building this really complex, elaborate way to get the segregated witness code into Bitcoin without doing by making it way more complicated than it needed to do in only soft fork upgrades. upgrades. It still works. It's just there's more lines of code, more prone to error. Only the miners have to do it, so you don't really get full community consensus. Where if you required a hard fork for segregated witness, which everybody who learns about segregated witness thinks it's a brilliant idea, implement it. It's a way to increase the space of the blockchain without actually increasing the space, but to increase the effective space of it. And so everybody likes it. It's just how it gets done. Core wants to do it in a soft fork only way, and it's kind of more complicated. It requires less of the community to get behind it, even though the community's behind it. But and I want to talk a little bit about the difference between a Bitcoin hard fork and Ethereum hard fork. So the DAO, since the soft fork is off the table, would break the entire Ethereum network. They're going to do a hard fork, which would basically rewrite only the code behind the DAO. And so any code behind the DAO would be replaced by a refund DAO code. So anybody who still had DAO tokens could use the new code to withdraw Ether from the DAO, which is just, so much simpler, so much easier. It's just the thing that's hard is you got to get much more community consensus behind it than the soft fork. And the soft fork, even with community consensus, doesn't work. So that's the only option. And then a Bitcoin hard fork actually, if it was on a Bitcoin network, you would have to roll back everybody's transactions. So if somebody was to go in your restaurant and order, the prime rib and order wine and order everything, and at the end, you found that he was being fraudulent in the way he went about doing it. On the Ethereum network, you can just roll back that one transaction if it's in a smart contract. The smart contract hadn't actually been paid out yet. So you can pinpoint with accuracy where the theft or where the attempted theft was, the attempted attacker was trying to navigate the system. You can pinpoint that, change the code a little bit, and get everything back. A Bitcoin hard fork, there's no account. It's all unspent transaction outputs. So you have to roll back everybody's transaction. So in a restaurant analogy, you couldn't just go to that one customer and say like, oh, well, you still have to pay. You have to roll back every transaction that happened in the restaurant. You have to look at every transaction that happened, not only in that restaurant, but every restaurant in the entire world. And not just restaurants, but every, transaction that happened on the entire network has to be looked at. And so that's why Bitcoin hard forks to undo things are just, there's something you don't want to do at all. It's like, that's an immutable ledger, can't change it. Ethereum, you can get at certain things. And the DAO is one of those things where it's a very surgical strike. You can pinpoint the DAO, change the code, refund the money, do a hard fork with broad community consensus among miners, users, developers, everybody involved in it, and then move on. Learn your lessons and move on.
How big are these communities that we're talking about? Like, I wish we could quantify how many people even know about the blockchain, let alone work in this world.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I don't know, somewhere between 500 and 2,000 people have written a smart contract.
Oh, really?
Maybe.
Oh, yeah, you can know that, huh? Wow.
Something like that.
Say, how many again?
I don't know, somewhere between 500 and 2,000 would be my guess.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, to compare it to like a Java developer, I think there's about 1 million Java developers out there. Maybe more, I don't know.
Not Sarah.
No, you can count me out. So I picture that whenever you talk about a fork,
yeah,
I in my dusty, rusty old Java that I never had to begin with, I do remember having to write something like if then loops. If that means anything. I picture those forks to be something like that, but like I said.
Yeah, no, they're not actually like forks in development code. They're kind of just, or in code, they're forks in like the block. So there's two. You can imagine, the way the blockchain works is every 10 minutes, a new block of all the transactions gets grouped together, right? And then 10 minutes later, another group of transactions gets blocked together, and you have these blocks that form a sequential chain based off of where they occurred in the timeline, right?
Oh dear. I guess so. Yes, I think so. I'm trying to imagine. I think I'm getting too visual on it. I'm picturing blocks being actually built, and they're just a clump of binary numbers that are stored somewhere, right?
Yeah, but let's not even call them like blocks. Then let's call them like grocery bags, right? So every transaction that happened has a receipt, and it gets tossed into a grocery bag.
Uh-huh.
Okay, and that grocery bag then becomes like, when it's all done and done, they get bundled up, and that sits, and it doesn't ever change. And that's like the bundle, that's the block. And so all those receipts are there in the bag. And then 10 minutes later, all the transactions that happen in the next 10 minutes get bundled up into a grocery bag. The receipts are there, and that's what happens.
It just has to do with the time they were created.
So a fork is all these transactions get bundled in different ways. So like maybe there's 100 receipts on the network, and one block gets 95 of them, and another bag gets 97 of them, because everybody's, grabbing these receipts, grabbing these copies of receipts and bundling them in the way they want to, based off of the order they get the receipts themselves. And so they create these two blocks at the same time, but they're slightly different, Does that make sense? So you have one grocery bag of 97 different receipts and one grocery bag of 98 different receipts. And two receipts then get processed by the network during that 10 minutes. Does that make sense?
Oh, my God.
Just nod and say yes.
Yes. I'm totally going to rewind that.
You don't get it, huh?
No, I wish I did. I really did. Especially since everyone's hearing me continue to not understand. And I'm listening more and more to different podcasts, and I am telling you, sometimes it gets pretty technical.
It's kind of abstract. It'd be helpful to see like a visual representation, like a movie.
Yes, it would. That definitely would help me. It makes it such a difference. Like when I see there's that one advertisement that the Blockchain Show had, and then I would post 1,000 times over on my Facebook, was so neat. Just the tiny little visualizations.
Did you guys buy the Tiny Humans MP3 yet?
No.
From Ujo Music?
I probably should do that
right,
for my Ethereum tanks.
Again?
Yeah.
I need to iron out that Coinbase issue so I could plunk more Bitcoin in there too. I still have enough for that though. It's true.
Coinbase is getting harder and harder. They implemented a little more security features where they got to do a little more know your customer to use them.
A little more
basically
what
know
your customer?
Know your customer. It's one of those goofy laws that are created.
I hate goofy laws.
They don't just call it like spy on the entire populace of the country. It's like know your customer. If you're making an exchange, if you're like doing anything involving money with somebody, you have to like know their name and their address and something.
And their menstrual cycle and their everything.
Right. Yes. Coinbase is doing a little bit more of that. So I'm trying to recommend these exchanges that are based in the United States that I don't think are going to run off with your money. Because there's exchanges all over the world, For a while there, they were in, like one was in Japan. It was called Mt. Gox, and they lost, I don't know, 15% of all the Bitcoin or something like that. Like they spent it all or something, or they were robbed. Who knows? Whatever happened, it was like a whole bunch of people lost, hundreds of thousands of dollars. All in all, it was millions of dollars lost. So you kind of want to stay away from places like that, and get your Bitcoin, once you use an exchange, out of the exchange and into personal wallet as fast as you can, because you never know. Government could come in and say like, all right, Coinbase, we confiscated all the Bitcoin. And they'll say, like, okay, here you go.
What?
Yeah.
Oh, this is another thing I have to figure out. Oh, so many silly little things to figure out with this. So you can keep it in. So when I have. No, wait.
Just transfer it to, like, I don't know, your Jack's wallet.
That's what I was going to say. If it's in my Jack's wallet, it's in my possession then, right? I'm thinking Coinbase is just used for me to purchase with my own money. I mean, I should say with my American dollar money to purchase whatever cryptocurrency I want.
Your useless fiat is what you should say.
Yes. It's a learning process.
But yeah, when these exchanges are just on-ramps and off-ramps. So if you're looking, and they're difficult because it's not because Bitcoin makes it difficult. It's because, the United States government makes it difficult.
Ooh. What are they doing now, those dirty dogs? So how do we transition them into their new either non-existent roles or different positions? I wonder how. That's one of the things I was thinking about talking to you about someday on the blockchain show was, I wonder, are there people out there other than the Flux Party? Like, how does one begin to implement it? How do you even get it proposed? How do you propose something in the United States of America where this is a free place, right? So, you begin to use new.
I would be shocked if U.S. policymakers would be looking to the blockchain or looking to this space to take over their positions.
Yeah, they're going to run from that like the plague. But there has to be some way to introduce it into the world in a way that, I mean, they're going to. You can't keep something in the dark for eternity. Oh, they're going to try. But there's got to be some way. I mean, this is a call out to anyone who's listening who knows anything about law. How do you propose something like this? What's the steps that people need to take in order to, like, I saw this really amazing show about voter fraud, how we basically know 100% it's happening. It's like there's so many reasons why we know it's not a conspiracy. It's like happening and certainly has happened before. Well, okay, guess what? We have the technology to do it so that we don't have these problems. We have that right now, presently. So how does one go about going from A to B? Changing that from the like Atari boxes from 1985 to blockchain technology where we can all know pretty much for sure, right?
I think the problem is that we are under the false belief that the officials want these machines to be fraud.
I don't think anybody believes that. Who would believe that? If you polled someone on the street, nobody would believe that.
They would think that the intent is for these to be fraud proof. But it's not. I mean, I think the intent is there for it to be, for them to be able to make the votes look like whatever they want the votes to look like.
100%. Well, it's not even that's not even a questionable thing. It's like
I would. Maybe there's different people in LA than there are in Milwaukee.
Oh wait, maybe my communication went off the rails. What are the California people? I mean, like, we know that fraud happened here in California. That's just, and in Arizona, totally 100% for sure.
People know that it happens, but people don't necessarily know that that's the intent of these systems.
Wait, what do you mean, like, these systems? Oh, you mean
that's the intent of, like, the Diebold voting machine or whatever it's called. It's so that George Bush and his cronies can flip a few switches and gain an extra 1,000 votes when they want to.
Right. Is there anyone who doesn't know that?
I would imagine everybody.
Yeah.
Everybody
so what are we
doesn't
missing?
Know that. No, nobody knows that because they hear it and don't believe it.
Oh my God.
Am I wrong or no?
I don't know. I honestly don't. I just feel like if you're one of those people, please call me. Tell me. I want to know for real. It's confusing. But I think what it is that who knows how to step up and change it? I mean, it's like, All right, let's try to work within the system then and still propose this thing that they're obviously not going to like because it changes things. It makes it 100% better for us, the every single person, really. If we're talking about being fair, we're all going to be woohoo! But if you got something sneaky going on that you want to keep in the dark, you're not going to be woohoo. So how do you crack that? Is there what's the way somebody proposes a new even just the voting machines? How the hell does that happen? Can we propose something where we all vote that from now on our new system of voting is going to be through the blockchain? What's the first step to that proposal to bring it to the attention of the American people so that we can all vote on it?
Yeah, we talked about this in an earlier episode. There was an issue of voter anonymity, so that you could keep your vote private.
Oh yeah,
put it
that
on
is
the
a problem.
blockchain. I don't know. I guess people could see it. Did you have any more thoughts on that, Steve?
I've listened to a few other people addressing this issue and kind of looking at it, and I feel as if I'm kind of a little bit out of my depth on how it would be done and, what are the actual challenges. It seems like the Flux Party has figured out a way to do something,
Yeah, they make it look so simple, I suppose.
When has there never been voters fraud, though?
A little creepy.
I definitely think a solution is going to, emerge is how to do better voting with the blockchain. I think that let's maybe compare it to like the internet. How long did it take government to get probably one of the best benefits of Obamacare wasn't actually that people got healthcare. I know a lot of people. It's very divisive in this country, the healthcare issue. However, one thing that nobody should be upset about is the fact that when Obamacare was first launched, it was the government doing business as usual before that. The government really doesn't know how to build any of this stuff, so they, gave the contract to the lowest bidder, and it was a horrible mess when it first came out. The website had people waiting hours or days even. Nobody ever got anything done on it. And they brought in experts. I think it was maybe like 1,000 different people in the field who worked for Google, who worked for other companies, and it really changed the way government looked, or at least the United States government looked at technology. Because before that, they just wanted to continue to give funds to their cronies, for the most part. People who had been in that game, and you can't do that with technology. You can't, ask your friends to build these highly technical websites, and you can't ask them to build these highly technical blockchains. Probably you have to get actual experts in the field to do it for you. And with Obamacare, that's when the government learned that they can't do it the old way. They have to do it the new way.
So wait. Does that mean to say that I remember that everything completely sucked with the Obamacare website and all that, but you're saying that then they had to learn to do things in a different way. They had to get experts in and be taught about new systems?
It is easily the biggest benefit to Obamacare. It is
what
that
is?
That now government has to, or knows better, that they should hire people who actually are experts in building websites to build a website. Like, this was news to them.
Wow.
I don't know how else to explain it.
No.
It shouldn't be news. Like, we should know that you can't just hire the lowest bidder to build important infrastructure like a healthcare portal website. But that's what they did. Like, they didn't consult anybody who knew anything. Well, I got good news for fans of insurance of all types. The blockchain will definitely help out in that respect. I think there's a few companies working on smaller scale insurance stuff, but it's actually doing insurance. It's pretty easy to take anything you can insure and move it to other areas. There's one company I know called it's called Team Umbrella. And so if you want to insure anything, let's take like car insurance, for example, instead of going to a insurance middleman, you can insure yourself, find out what coverage you want, join a team, and that this will all be done through a smart contract. And your fellow team members, you would submit your claim if you had one to your fellow team members, and then they would play the role of insurance company, and they would pay out, if the policy you purchased with the team, if the coverage you got was enough to pay out. Your deductible, or your premiums, actually not your deductible, your premiums would you would pay them to the insurance company, but you would be in charge of them the entire time, and you'd only be liable to pay them out when you approved somebody's payment.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, insurance is gonna be one of the first things affected by the blockchain. I think when it starts out with simpler insurances like car insurance, it probably go pretty smoothly there, and then health insurance probably pretty soon after that, because it's such a important thing for people to have. The problem with health insurance is everybody, needs health care. They need health coverage and health care, not really health insurance. It's kind of like I don't know, it's kind of the wrong product that everybody's forced to have. Everybody's forced to have health insurance, and actually nobody cares about whether it's good quality health care at all.
That's exactly it, because it's not the quality that I want. That's just my personal opinion.